Hi, I'm Michael McCormick. Looking at me now, you would never guess that 20 years ago, I woke up one morning without any kidney function. Just 2 months after my 18th birthday, I was too old to be treated at Sick Kids, so I was brought to the emergency room at St. Michael's Hospital, a truly strange and scary experience for a kid from the suburbs. I should have been embarking on a journey into adulthood. Instead, I was thrown into the world of nephrology. I was diagnosed with a lesser form of kidney failure called FSGS, or focal segmental glomerular sclerosis. 4 words I never expected to hear, yet alone say in a sentence. Try saying it 3 times really fast. Impossible. Over the next month, I sought many tests and treatments to try and reverse my kidney failure. But in the end, nothing proved successful, and I was told I would need dialysis in the short term and a transplant later on. Dialysis, as I would learn, is a life support process which replaces the function of the kidneys. Each treatment involves inserting 2 large needles into my arm to access my blood. My blood is then pumped in through a dialysis machine where it's cleansed of waste products and fluid, and the blood is returned to my body. 3 times weekly, 4-hour treatments cut significantly into my free time. Dietary restrictions meant I had to learn the nutritional value of everything that passed my lips, and know what I could eat and what I had to avoid. For any of you who have teenagers or around teenagers, you can appreciate that meal planning is not high on the to-do list. The fluid restrictions required me to account for every ounce of liquid I ingested. As Dr. Goldstein constantly reminded me, failure to comply with either diet or fluid restrictions could cause serious harm to my life. I still remember clearly the day that monthly blood work results came back, and they were not good. Dr. Goldstein stormed through the dialysis unit and took all the milk and coffee creamers off everyone's food tray as punishment. As with many new dialysis patients, things are rarely smooth and stable. After a year of dialysis and numerous complications, my medical team decided that we should attempt a transplant. I learned the hard way that kidney transplants have low success rates in FSGS patients, something I'm sure the doctors told me beforehand, but I did not want to hear. Less than 48 hours after the surgery, I was back on dialysis. The transplant had failed. I decided it was time to get on with my life, with dialysis as part of the routine. With the help of my teachers, my friends, my family, and especially the great team at St. Michael's Hospital, I returned to high school, graduated, and went off to the University of Waterloo. This is where I encountered yet another challenge. It was easier to get accepted into university than it was to move my dialysis treatments from St. Mike's in Toronto to KW General Hospital. In fact, at one point it looked as though I would have to live and go to school in Waterloo and commute to St. Mike's in Toronto for dialysis treatments. Perseverance and patience paid off when I was accepted into the KW dialysis program the week before school started. After I completed university in 1994, there were new treatment options available for transplantation into FSGS patients. While I knew the risks were high, the possibility of a successful transplant was too much to ignore. Again, however, the transplant failed, and I was back on dialysis almost immediately. I knew at this point that transplantation was no longer an option for me. It was time to move on into the working world, again with dialysis as part of the routine. For most people, routine is part of daily life. Get up, get ready for work, go to work, come home, have personal time. For me, it's not much different, with the exception of scheduling dialysis, mostly into my personal time. After several years of dialyzing at St. Mike's Hospital, my wife and I purchased a home with an eye to moving to conventional home dialysis. This meant that 3 to 4 times a week, I would get home from work and connect myself to the dialysis machine in my living room. While this was a positive move in getting me out of the hospital environment, it did not really change the time commitment. In fact, the main reason for this move was to allow me to get more time on dialysis with added flexibility. I recently switched to a newer form of dialysis known as nocturnal dialysis, which allows me to dialyze while I sleep. This has had a number of major benefits for me, including about 3 times as much dialysis each week, all of it while I'm asleep. The additional free time this has given me is the greatest improvement in dialysis for me in the last 15 years. It's also meant fewer dietary and fluid restrictions. Since my last transplant in 1994, dialysis has been fairly stable, allowing me to carry on with a relatively normal life. Sure, there's been dozens of angioplasty procedures, multiple fistula operations, and hundreds of diagnostic tests. But overall, these are just small bumps in the road. I have a successful career at the Toronto Stock Exchange. I curl competitively and I'm the president of the Unionville Curling Club. And I've traveled in many places in Canada, the US, the Caribbean, and Europe for both work and for vacation. My wife and I just returned from a successful trip to the south of France and north of Spain. The interaction with the local people in the dialysis units while on vacation has actually been a very positive experience, providing us with local insight into the areas we're visiting that you just wouldn't get from a travel book. While the last 20 years have not been easy, they've been great. I've seen and done many things that I dreamed of and many things I never thought would even be possible. I've never let the routine of dialysis stop me from living my life. Don't get me wrong, there have been complications along the way, but I persevere and continue to move forward, dealing with each challenge as it arises. To me, dialysis is the best paying part-time job I've ever had. I get paid with my life.